Good day, everyone. My name is Allison. Are you ready for a story that'll tug at your heartstrings and keep you hooked till the very end? I'm Ollie DeWitt, 32 years old, a preschool teacher, and a single mother to 6 children, sextuplets. My life hasn't been easy. Years ago, I worked as a high-end escort to survive. But one night, a man came into my life and helped me leave that world behind. I thought he would rescue me completely. But instead, he left me pregnant, alone, and with a tremendous responsibility. Years passed, and I never thought I'd see him again. But fate had other plans. Can you guess what shocking twist brought us back together? To my shock, we crossed paths once more. And even more surprising, he was working at the same school where I taught, wearing the uniform of a janitor. To the world, he's a wanted criminal. But in my heart, I knew he wasn't evil. I remembered how he once saved me. I knew there had to be a reason why our paths crossed again. Stay tuned to Dark Voices for more gripping tales like this. Allison watched her 6 children go about their activities inside the classroom. Despite the mess and noise, she was used to the chaos that came with being a preschool teacher and mother of sextuplets. It was a typical afternoon. Lexi, the most expressive of the 6, was the first to approach her with a scowl, clutching her coloring book and crayons. "Mom, my drawing looks awful," she complained with a pout, her shoulders slumping. Ally knelt beside her and gently stroked her hair. "Sweetheart, it doesn't need to be perfect. If it comes from your heart, then it's beautiful." Lexi nodded, but didn't seem fully convinced. She turned and returned to her seat, determined to finish her artwork. Across the room, Lucas was silently stacking blocks into what looked like a structure of some kind. When Ally approached him, he offered a small smile, quiet and observant as always. "What are you building, honey? A spaceship?" "Yes, Mom. It's going to Mars," he answered without looking up. Near the window, Leah stood scribbling on a small whiteboard, her brow furrowed like she was solving an important mystery. "Mom, how do you spell boiling water?" she called out without turning. "Pick something easier to spell," Ally teased as she walked over and whispered the correct spelling in her ear. Leah lit up and immediately wrote it down. Meanwhile, Liam and Lance were chasing each other around the tables. "I'm a superhero," shouted Liam. "No, I'm the superhero," Lance countered, taking off after his brother. Ally quickly stepped between them. "Hey, no running inside. Someone could get hurt." The boys skidded to a stop, but immediately started giggling, collapsing onto the carpet where they began playing with toy cars. In the far corner, Isla was quietly threading beads to make a bracelet, each movement gentle, a shy smile always present. "Lila, who's that bracelet for?" Ally asked. "It's for you, Mommy," Isla replied, handing over the colorful bracelet. Ally teared up slightly but composed herself, kissing her daughter on the forehead. "Thank you, baby. It's beautiful." Outside on the playground, the children ran in circles, laughing and playing tag. Ally watched them from a distance, her eyes tracing their every movement. "Tag, you're it," Liam called, tapping Lance, who screamed with laughter and bolted. Just then, Lexi accidentally ran into someone sweeping the walkway near the school entrance. The broom flew from his hand, scattering dried leaves everywhere. "Ouch!" Lexi cried, grabbing her forehead. The janitor, an older man wearing a faded work shirt and a fake mustache, stumbled back in surprise, his eyes locking briefly on the child. "Sorry," all 6 kids chimed together as they gathered around their sister. The janitor gave a raspy chuckle. "It's okay, kids. These old knees are tougher than you think." Isla stepped closer, staring at the man curiously. "Are you really the janitor here? You look super old." The man inhaled sharply but kept his smile. "I've been working here a long time, since before you were even born." Lucas peeked from behind Isla. "You kind of look like a zombie," he whispered, then giggled and darted behind his siblings. Leah circled him, examining his face closely. "Why does your mustache look fake?" That made the janitor flinch, his left eyebrow twitched. "Why? You want to pull it?" "Yeah, pull it, Leah." Lance shouted excitedly. Before any child could touch him, the janitor raised his broom. Hey, no touching the janitor's face. There's a fine for pulling mustaches, you know. The kids squealed with laughter. From a distance, Ally watched the interaction unfold, her brows furrowing. Something about the man seemed oddly familiar. She didn't remember having an elderly janitor like him around before. She quickly approached. "Kids, stop pestering Mr. Janitor," she called, her voice gently authoritative. The janitor looked up, and for a fleeting second, their eyes met. He quickly looked away, dropping his gaze. "Sorry about them, sir. They're just really curious," Ally said, picking up Leah. "It's all right, ma'am. I kind of like the company." Ally squinted, examining him quietly. There was something undeniably familiar about him, his movements, the way he spoke, even his smile. She couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just a janitor. As she walked away with her children, the janitor, whose real name was Jack Rivera, watched them leave. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. Beneath his fake mustache, his eyes narrowed. "I can't afford to be recognized. Not here." Behind the old maintenance shed near the school grounds, Jack Rivera slipped inside quietly, his fake mustache stuffed back into his jacket pocket. The dim interior was lit only by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Inside, two men were already waiting. "Boss, are you okay?" asked Manny, one of Jack's longtime associates from his days in hiding. Jack stood in the center of the room and nodded. "No one suspects me yet, but one of the kids almost figured it out, one of the 6. Did they notice anything suspicious?" Manny's partner, Troy, asked. "Not the kids. They're too young. But their mom, the teacher, she's sharp." "Boss, we have an update," Manny added, handing him a small tablet displaying an encrypted file. "Right now, your father's former men aren't making any moves. Looks like their attention is fixed on the new syndicate leader." Jack stared silently at the screen, watching photos and transaction logs scroll by, names and faces he never wanted to see again. "Are they still spreading false information about me?" he asked tightly. "Yes, sir," Troy answered. "They've pinned everything on you: extortion, drug trafficking, money laundering, all of it. But they have no hard evidence. Still, being Don Javier Rivera's son, you're an easy scapegoat." Jack clenched his fists. Despite disappearing for years, his father's shadow still haunted him. "All of this, it's why I'm doing this. I'm not just clearing my name," Jack said with a deep sigh. "I'm reclaiming my life. I never chose any of this, but I'm owning the consequences." "What's the plan now, boss?" asked Manny. "I'm staying in the school. It's the only place I can move freely and stay under the radar. We'll keep tracking the real culprit, especially this new boss running the syndicate. I want to know who's impersonating me." Manny and Troy exchanged glances. They could tell Jack was serious. His voice held weight. "Also, keep an eye on the teacher. I'm sure she suspects something." "And what if she finds out who you really are?" Manny asked. Jack paused before answering. "She has nothing to fear from me unless she tries to stop me." The men packed up quietly and slipped out of the shed. The next day, Jack showed up at the school early, still dressed in his janitor's uniform, carrying his broom and dustpan. Though his mind was weighed down with everything he'd learned, he couldn't help but smile as the sound of children laughing echoed from the playground. "Hey, it's Mr. Johnny Sweeper. There he is again. Let's go." Liam shouted excitedly, and the 6 kids rushed toward him. Before he could step away, they swarmed him. Lance tugged at his shirt. Lexi jumped on his back. Isla reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out the fake mustache. "Mr. Sweeper, wear this again," she giggled, trying to press it to his face. "Hold on. You're going to ruin my handsome look," Jack laughed, pretending to back away. "It looks better with the mustache," Lucas and Leah teased from behind. Jack sighed in mock defeat, setting his dustpan down and winking at Lexi. "All right, we'll play a game, but only under one condition." "What's the condition?" the 6 asked in chorus. Whoever can make 4 shapes using the stones by the sandbox, the fastest, wins. The losers, you have to sing to me. The kids whooped with excitement and bolted toward the sandbox. Some practically dove into the sand in their eagerness. Jack watched them with a small smile. It had been years since he'd laughed like this. "Mom, Mr. Sweeper joined our game," Lance called, waving to Ally, who had just stepped out of the faculty room. She frowned at first, but softened when she saw how happy her kids were. "Sir, looks like you're the babysitter today," she joked. "They're more fun than adults," Jack replied, dodging a handful of sand thrown by Liam. "I hope they're not bothering you." "Not at all. If all jobs were this joyful, I wouldn't mind working overtime." Later, inside a small supply room near the school's rear wing, Jack stood in silence. His phone sat on a box, screen glowing with a video call from Manny, who appeared to be in a parked SUV. "Boss, we found something on the teacher." Jack wiped the sweat from his neck, listening intently. "Her name is Allison DeWitt. She dropped off the radar for a while. She has a record picked up years ago in a club raid in Chicago, listed as a hostess, but known under the alias Mirror. After that, she vanished. Rumors say she was hidden by a former client, but there's no solid proof." Jack stared out the dusty window, processing the news. "You're sure it's her? Same birthday, same mother's name, and fingerprint match." "No doubt." Jack didn't respond right away. There had been so many faces in his past. He couldn't remember exactly when she had appeared in his life. "Thanks," he finally said, then ended the call. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. Ally entered, holding a plastic bag with 2 food containers. "I noticed you didn't bring lunch. Isla had some extra stew." Jack smiled slightly but didn't take the food immediately. Instead, he watched her place it gently on the small table. "Thank you," he said softly. Her movements were careful, her words delicate, like someone used to carrying the weight of a painful past. "Would you like some rice with that?" she asked, breaking the silence. "No, this is plenty. I'm just not used to anyone offering me food." She smiled gently. "It's nothing. I just thought you might not have eaten yet today." In the back of Jack's mind, a hazy memory flickered, but it disappeared before he could grasp it. The sextuplets ran playfully across the classroom after school, racing to complete their puzzles, yelling, teasing each other. Ally was tidying up her desk when they suddenly came rushing toward her. "Mom, look. Lance got the shape wrong again." "Did not. Leah copied mine." "Lila, catch me." Lexi shouted as she ran toward her sister. "Guys, slow down. Someone's going to get hurt again," Ally warned. But she couldn't hide the smile tugging at her lips. She was used to scenes like this, exhausting, yes, but filled with joy. Amid the chaos, the door to the faculty room suddenly burst open. Miss Christine, a fellow teacher, entered, holding a cell phone and looking unsettled. "Ally, you need to see this." Ally stepped away from her kids and took the phone. The screen was open to a breaking news alert: Joaquin Rivera, billionaire and son of notorious crime boss, last seen in the Chicago area, still wanted for massive money laundering and fleeing with the Rivera fortune. Considered dangerous, maybe in disguise. Ally's throat tightened, her eyes locked onto the photograph. Those sharp eyes, the jawline, the faint scar near the lips. She couldn't be mistaken. It was him, the man she once loved, the one who pulled her out of that club, and the father of her 6 children. "Jack," she whispered. "You know him?" Miss Christine asked, her tone cautious. Ally shook her head quickly. "No, I just didn't expect him to look like that now." But inside, her emotions were in turmoil. She had never expected him to return to her life, let alone be so close. Want to know what happens next? Keep watching Dark Voices for the emotional twists and turns. Later, Jack sat alone under a tree, holding the food Ally had given him earlier. He hadn't opened it yet. His thoughts wandered to memories he had buried long ago. Then suddenly, her face appeared in his mind, clear as day. Mirror, the girl who once begged him for help. It was her, he whispered, finally connecting the dots. He looked toward the playground where the children laughed, running around in circles. Could they really be? He muttered. That evening, while helping move chairs in the multi-purpose room, Jack casually asked one of the teachers, "Hey, Miss DeWitt, is she married?" "No, she's a single mom." "Never been married." Jack paused. "Single mom," he repeated, needing to hear it again. "Yeah, she raised all 6 kids on her own. Teaches full-time, too. We've never heard anything about the dad. She never talks about him." Jack's chest tightened. His eyes drifted back to the playground where the kids still played. After class, Jack walked quietly to the back of the school building, still holding his broom and broken dustpan. His hands trembled. He slipped into the small storage room and pulled out a phone hidden beneath a box. Several messages from Manny flashed across the screen, *boss, urgent. Check the news, *. He tapped the headline, exclusive, Joaquin Rivera, wanted billionaire, allegedly has a secret child. Jack froze, his eyes wide. A child, he whispered. He immediately called Manny. You saw it, too? Manny answered before he could speak. That's impossible. I never had a child. I've never even been in a serious relationship. You know that. Someone's trying to destroy me, especially now that I've resurfaced. We'll look for the source. Someone either knows you or is trying to smear your name again. Jack's fists clenched. I won't let them arrest me over another lie. We have to find out who started this. We're on it, Manny said as the sound of a running engine hummed behind him. Later that afternoon, Ally passed a small diner near the bus terminal, carrying bags of school supplies. A familiar voice called out from behind her. Hey, isn't that Mira? She turned slowly and saw Dooley and May, former co-workers from her past life. Both were heavily made up, still wearing short skirts and tight tops. Look at you. So fancy now, huh? Heard you're a teacher, one of them said with a mocking smirk. So what? Ally answered, keeping her tone calm. Yes, I'm a teacher. That doesn't erase where I came from, but it doesn't mean I stayed the same either. May sneered. You're still one of us, all dolled up now, pretending to be all clean, but in the end, we're all the same. Ally didn't reply. She simply turned and walked away until a group of men nearby began snickering. That's the teacher with 6 kids, right? Changed jobs, but still using the same assets, one joked loudly. Ally stopped in her tracks, her hands shook, fists tightening around the plastic bags. Speak with respect, she said firmly. Whether I'm a teacher or not, you don't get to disrespect me. I'm not an object you get to destroy just because of my past. One man stepped closer. Then why don't you show us what you got again? Maybe we'll give you a discount. Before he could finish, Jack appeared from nowhere, his steps heavy. Without warning, he shoved the man back. Back off, Jack said coldly. Try that again, and you're going to hit the pavement. The man staggered, stunned. Who the hell are you? You're just a janitor. Jack grabbed the man's wrist tightly, far too strong for a regular janitor. I don't fight fools, but if you insult a woman brave enough to fight for her dignity, I'll be the one to put you in your place. The men sensed something different in Jack. The way he stood, his voice, his eyes, they backed off and walked away. Thanks, Ally said quietly. Jack didn't look at her right away. He kept his eyes on the retreating group before finally turning toward her. You don't have to explain your past. What matters is who you are now. From down the street, a police patrol car appeared. Jack didn't notice it at first, but when he saw an officer step out holding a photo, his heart dropped. Joaquin Rivera, last spotted near the Belmont area. Be alert, he heard the radio say. Without thinking, he grabbed Ally's arm and pulled her away. What the hell? Where are you taking me? Ally asked, startled. Just trust me. Come on, Jack urged, his voice low. They darted into a narrow alleyway between 2 buildings. His heart pounded. Why are we hiding? It's just the police. They don't arrest janitors. We didn't do anything wrong. Jack didn't answer, but then he slipped, his foot hitting a wet patch of cement. As he fell, his fake mustache ripped off, and his black beanie slipped from under his cap. Ally saw his face. "Jack," she whispered. Jack froze. "No. It can't be. Is it really you?" Ally's voice trembled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. It wasn't the right time." Tears welled up in her eyes. "You're the one who saved me." Ally gently closed the gate to her small front yard. Jack stood behind her, still holding the cap and fake mustache that had fallen off earlier. The back of his janitor's shirt was soaked from the earlier stumble. "You can stay here for now," Ally said softly, closing the front door. "You're safer here than out on the street." Jack hesitated at the hallway entrance of her home. He slowly stepped inside, knowing he had nowhere else to go. The 6 kids came running from the living room to greet their mother. Lucas clutched a toy while Lexi held a paper covered in drawings. "Mom, you're back. We've been waiting forever," Liam yelled, hugging her waist. They all froze when they noticed Jack behind her. "Hey, it's Mr. Sweeper." "What's he doing here, Mom?" one of them asked. Ally swallowed hard and forced a smile, though her expression was clearly strained. "He got hurt while cleaning the back of the school. I helped him out." "He didn't have anywhere else to go," she explained quickly. "Really?" Lance asked, walking up to Jack. "You're lucky. Mom's super nice." "You should live with us," Lexi chimed. "We don't get visitors much." Ally and Jack exchanged glances. Jack scratched his head awkwardly. "Just for a bit, okay?" "No need to worry," he said, though his tone revealed a hint of hesitation. "Are you hungry, Mr. Sweeper?" Lexi asked, tugging on his shirt. "A little," Jack admitted with a smile. "Come on, we still have some adobo." Isla shouted as she raced toward the kitchen. Early the next morning, the house was quiet, the kids still sound asleep. Without warning, police vehicles pulled up outside the home. A neighbor, nosy and always watching, had spotted Jack slipping into the alley the day before and had reported it. Inside the living room, Jack sat on the couch. He didn't resist as officers burst in and took him into custody. He gave Ally a calm look, nodding faintly. "He didn't fight. We've been looking for him for a long time," one officer said. Ally couldn't do anything. She clutched her now awake children tightly as they watched Jack being escorted out of the house. The story made headlines across social media. Photos flooded the internet. Joaquin Rivera, wanted billionaire, captured in suburban Chicago, allegedly connected to a single mother and 6 children. Ally stared at her phone, hands trembling, her chest tightened. She wanted to correct the lies, to tell the truth. But another truth kept her quiet. If the world found out those children were Jack's, they'd be dragged into the spotlight. People might shun them. She might lose her job. Everything she'd built could fall apart. "I can't risk that," she whispered. Jack sat in a holding cell at the precinct. He refused the public defender. "I have my own lawyer," he told the officer. He was scheduled to face a hearing in a week. Later that day, Ally received a call from one of Jack's men. "Ma'am, the boss wants to speak with you before the hearing. You're the only one he trusts." The courtroom was tense, the air heavy as evidence against Jack was presented. He sat in the defendant's box, wearing a plain shirt. Despite his clean appearance, fatigue lingered in his eyes. It wasn't looking good. The prosecution came in strong, laying out bank records, old surveillance videos, and statements from former associates of Jack's late father, Don Fausto Rivera. The accused is the last known beneficiary of the Rivera fortune and the only one left to profit from the criminal empire, the prosecution claimed. Jack said nothing. He listened in silence, never flinching. Then his attorney stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to present new evidence, the original will of Don Fausto Rivera." Murmurs spread across the courtroom. Even the judge furrowed his brow. The lawyer produced a document, not the version held by the prosecution, but one recovered from a hidden vault in the Rivera estate. It was Don Fausto's handwritten confession, outlining every illegal activity he'd conducted, each transaction and operation. The document made one fact clear: Jack had no part in it. Your Honor, Mr. Rivera left the country over 10 years ago. We have documentation proving he was overseas when many of these crimes took place. A former associate of Don Fausto took the witness stand next. Jack wasn't involved, the man said. He was the only one of Don Fausto's kids who stood up to him. He walked away. Nearly got killed for it. The room fell silent. The prosecution had no rebuttal. One by one, the charges were dismissed. Finally, the judge delivered the ruling. In light of the presented evidence and testimony, Joaquin Rivera is found not to have participated in any illegal activities associated with his father. All charges are hereby dropped. Mr. Rivera is free to go. Jack remained still for a moment. The weight of years lifted, but he struggled to believe it was real. From the back of the courtroom, Ally stood, tears brimming in her eyes. Their eyes met for the first time since the arrest. Ally and Jack sat together on a worn bench beneath the old oak tree outside her home. Dinner had ended. The kids were inside watching cartoons, their laughter muffled behind the windows. Jack took a breath and turned to her. Can I ask you something? What? Ally responded, already sensing where the conversation was heading. You probably already know, or maybe you feel it, too. The Sextuplets. They're mine, aren't they? Jack fell silent. His expression barely changed, but his eyes deepened, understanding dawning within them. I knew it. I felt it the moment I saw them. But I wasn't sure. I didn't want to assume. Ally studied him closely. Why didn't you ask me? Jack smiled faintly, almost bitterly. Because I didn't know if I had the right. I didn't know if you could ever accept me again. With all the things tied to my last name, I didn't want them to get caught in that shadow. I didn't want you to suffer more. Ally nodded slowly. That's why I never told you either. I was afraid someone would try to take them from me, afraid the world would judge them for being your kids. I didn't want them to become a reflection of your family's past. Thank you, Ally, for everything, for protecting them, for raising them the way you did, for not hating me. You don't have to thank me, she said softly. They're my life, too. I only want them to grow up happy and good. That's what matters most. Inside, the kids were still on the carpet, laughing and watching their cartoon show. Ally and Jack stepped in. Kids, there's something Mr. Sweeper would like to tell you, Ally said gently. All six turned around at once. Lexi was the first to speak. Why is Mr. Sweeper with you, Mom? Is the faucet broken? Jack scratched the back of his neck. No broken faucet, but I do have something important to say. What is it? Lucas asked, setting down his toy car. Jack knelt before them and exhaled deeply. Kids, I'm your father. They all stared in stunned silence. Huh? I'm your dad, Jack repeated, pointing to himself. Isla stood. That's impossible. You've been a janitor forever. How can you be our dad? Yeah, another chimed in. Our dad is probably a superhero or a chef or maybe even an astronaut. Or maybe he's just pretending, one muttered. Maybe he just wants our chocolate stash. Jack laughed awkwardly and stood up straight. No, really. Ask your mom. Ally nodded slowly. He's telling the truth. Jack, Mr. Sweeper, is your real dad. The children turned back to him. But why were you in disguise? Lexi asked. Because I was hiding from something. But I'm not hiding anymore. Okay, if you're really our dad, what's Layla's favorite color? Pink, Jack answered quickly. Right. Isla exclaimed. But we're still going to test you. If you're really our dad, can you carry us all at once? Of course I can, Jack laughed, pulling them all into a giant group hug. Yay, they cheered. Can we call you Daddy Janitor now? No, Daddy Super Janitor sounds better. Though the kids were skeptical at first, deep down they felt something real, something that couldn't be faked. The next morning, Ally arrived early at the preschool, carrying papers and crayons for her class. The moment she walked through the gate, her students greeted her enthusiastically. Good morning, Teacher Mirror. She smiled and bowed slightly. Good morning, kids. Let's head inside. A few minutes later, Jack arrived, too. He was no longer in disguise. His haircut was neat, his expression relaxed. He came to drop off the sextuplets, who were running excitedly around him. Daddy, hurry up! Liam yelled as Lexi ran ahead. Some of the other parents at drop-off turned to stare. That's him, right? One mother whispered. Yeah, the billionaire who was arrested. I thought he was dangerous. Jack heard them but didn't react. He walked calmly toward Ally, holding the kids' lunchboxes. Are you sure it's okay for me to be here? He asked in a low voice. You're fine, Ally reassured him with a soft smile. You were cleared of everything. They have no reason to judge you. She entered the classroom, glancing back at Jack. He stood by the doorway, watching the children sit happily at their desks. For a moment, peace returned. The entire family took a cheerful ride to Jack's estate. The sextuplets giggled in the back seat, teasing each other and pointing out the sights along the road. That gate is huge. Lexi gasped, pressing her face against the window. There's a fountain. Look, a fountain. Lucas added, pointing excitedly outside. As they stepped out of the vehicle in front of the mansion, Jack's staff, all dressed in uniform, greeted them warmly. Welcome home, Mr. Rivera. Are these the little ones we've heard so much about? We're not troublemakers. We're just playful, one of the kids clarified. Come in. We've got food ready out in the garden. Ally noticed how friendly Jack's staff were to the children. The gardeners even let Lance and Liam help water the plants while Lexi and Leah were given chalk to draw on the sidewalk. Mom, aren't you nervous the kids might make a mess? A maid asked politely. They won't make a mess, Ally replied with a smile. But I won't promise nothing gets broken. Suddenly, a shout came from the pool area. I'm jumping! Lucas yelled before diving into the kiddie pool with his shoes still on. Lucas! Ally cried, but burst into laughter as she saw him floating happily. Jack and Ally exchanged a look as the kids ran around the pond, searching for frogs. They strolled quietly through the garden. Some staff members whispered nearby. Sir, said Mr. Edwards, the elderly steward, stepping forward. Forgive me, but I've always wanted to ask. Yes, Ed? Jack asked, raising an eyebrow. Are you courting Miss Ally? Jack stopped in his tracks. What? No, we're just friends. That's a shame. She's the wife material type, kind, hardworking, brave. If I were younger, I'd have married her myself, Ed replied with a chuckle. Jack scratched the back of his neck, clearly flustered. I've known her a long time. Then don't let someone else take her. You'll regret it, Ed warned. Another staff member chimed in. Just watch how she looks at you when you play with the kids. There's tenderness in her eyes. Jack didn't reply, but the comment struck a chord. Inside the mansion, Ally had taken a seat to rest. A housemaid brought her a glass of juice. Ma'am, please drink this. Thank you, Ally replied, accepting the glass. Just wondering, ma'am. Are you and Mr. Rivera together? Ally choked on her straw, startled. What? No. Nothing like that. I just think you make a good pair. You're so sweet to each other, the maid said playfully. Maybe he's just waiting for the right time. Please, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. But if he finds a place in your heart, would you let him stay? Ally didn't answer. She blushed and turned away, only to glance up just as Jack passed by. They exchanged a look, smiled awkwardly, and then both looked away. Hey, they both laughed. So, did you want to say something? Jack asked. Ladies first. I just wanted to thank you for everything, Ally said. And I just want to say how lucky I am that you're the mother of my children. They continued setting up the garden table for lunch with the staff and kids. But instead of working efficiently, their interactions were filled with playful teasing and knowing glances. Ally, do you think this flower pot looks good here? Jack asked, handing it to her. You need permission to put a flower pot on a table, she laughed. Put anything on it. It'll still look great. Even better if it's me sitting across from you, he said with a grin. Ally's eyes widened. Hey, I'm supposed to be the flirt here. I can throw compliments, too, you know. Nearby, two maids stopped tending to the plants and giddily covered their mouths like excited teenagers. Girl, it's really happening. This is headed to a wedding, one whispered. If they don't get married, I'll walk Miss Ally down the aisle myself, said the other, dancing in excitement. Suddenly, another staff member ran over. Sir Jack, Miss Ally, the kids are tying balloons to the chickens. Jack and Ally paused, exchanged a glance, and burst into laughter. We're not flirting, Ed, Ally called out, trying not to smile as her cheeks turned red. Not yet, Jack added with a wink, sipping his juice. But give me a few days. I might not hold back. You're impossible, Ally laughed, swatting him with a dish towel. Just then, Leah walked by, holding a balloon. She stopped and eyed the two adults. Mom, are you and Daddy Jack together now? The staff nearby covered their mouths again to suppress squeals. Not yet, Ally replied, glancing toward Jack. But maybe soon, Jack added with a wink. Daddy Jack, marry Mommy already. Do you have a ring yet? The sextuplets shouted from the yard. Ally rubbed her forehead, flustered. You two, don't meddle. It's practice, Mom. For the real proposal. But before anyone could respond, Jack's phone rang. It was his lawyer. He stepped aside and answered with a deep frown. Sir, you need to come to Chicago. A new case has been filed. Jack's grip tightened on the phone, his expression shifting. What now? I thought everything was clear. An anonymous source submitted new evidence. There's a video. It claims you've continued your father's operation behind your charity efforts. Jack froze. That's impossible. There's no such thing. But the footage looks strong, security cams, transaction logs, even a witness, someone close to you. Just then, Mr. Edwards stepped onto the veranda. Everything all right, sir? He asked, holding a fresh plate of pastries. Jack stared at him but didn't reply immediately. When he returned to the patio, Ally was waiting. She handed him a sealed envelope from one of the staff. This just came in. One of your former employees left it. Inside were photographs, financial documents, and bank statements, all bearing Jack's name. At the bottom was a handwritten note, asterisk if you won't admit the truth, I will. The son of a devil doesn't deserve to be cleansed, asterisk. Jack stood stunned. Ally couldn't find words. This is why I stopped trusting people, he whispered. Instead of heading straight to Chicago, Jack called in Yanni, a young IT expert and former hacker who'd once been helped by Jack's foundation. They met in the estate study. Yanni, dressed in a hoodie and chewing on a piece of candy, sat at her laptop. Give me 15 minutes, she said, fingers flying across the keyboard. Jack stood behind her. Ally watched quietly from the back of the room. Hold on, Yanni said, pausing as she pointed to the screen. Got something? He logged in with an old admin access code. And guess what? It triggered the surveillance cam when he uploaded the files. On screen, a video appeared. A man in a staff uniform was clearly seen inserting a USB stick, looking around suspiciously. Jack's eyes widened as he recognized him. It's Ed, he muttered. Look at the patch on his shirt, Ally said, leaning in. That's an old staff badge. It's not the current design. Jack's brow furrowed. So, the video's old. Yanni typed rapidly. Yeah, it's been doctored, but there's more. A hidden audio file. Sounds like an accidental